We start this hour with breaking news. Famine has been declared in Gaza City for the first time. The UN-backed Integrated Food Security Phase classification, which monitors world hunger, has just made the formal declaration. This comes as Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz has threatened to destroy Gaza City after Benjamin Netanyahu said the country's military will expand its offensive there. Let's bring in our correspondent in the Middle East, Adam Parsons. Adam, just tell us more about this declaration.
So this IPC classification goes from 1 to 5, and it monitors and provides analysis for countries all over the world. Effectively, 1 is when you have no worries about your food. When you get to 4, there is a very, very serious shortage of food, but 5 is very rarely reached. It is a threshold that the IPC has only introduced on a few occasions over the past 20 years, and that indicates famine, and that is exactly where we are now, is that the IPC is saying that the Gaza Governorate, which is the area around Gaza City, now faces famine. That means that, among other things, it expects a mortality rate of 2 people out of every 10,000 dying every day. It means that death and destitution are seen as commonplace, and it means that there is a widespread lack of food and starvation. To emphasize that this is the highest level you can reach, and in recent years it has only been breached in Sudan, Somalia. This is the first place outside Africa that has breached this threshold.
From Geneva now.
Very much for being with us today. Today, as you know, is Friday, 22nd of August, and we start this press briefing in Geneva with a very special guest that I would like to salute and welcome here, Tom Fletcher, and the Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, who will speak to you about hunger in Gaza. I'd like to remind everyone, especially those who follow us from home, that this part of the briefing is under strict embargo until 11 o'clock. So please respect this, this deadline. 2 more things. As you have seen from the agenda of today, at 11 o'clock, we will switch to the IPC report on hunger in Gaza, and we will have guests from WFP, from WHO, and from OHCHR. So for more technical questions, I would invite you to ask these questions later on, because Mr. Fletcher doesn't have much time. He will take a few questions at the end, but keep the more technical question for later on, when we will have our experts on the line. So I give you the floor, sir, for your introductory remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Now, please read the IPC report. Read it cover to cover. Read it in sorrow and read it in anger. Not as words and numbers, but as names and lives. Be in no doubt that this is irrefutable testimony. It is a famine, the Gaza famine. It is a famine that we could have prevented if we had been allowed. Yet food stacks up at borders because of systematic obstruction by Israel. It is a famine within a few hundred meters of food in a fertile land. We have a problem with the line, I think. Apologies.
Sorry, I'm very, very sorry. Would that be possible to
restart? Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
sorry.
If you're happy.
Just check with the regime. Is it okay? Okay, then give me the thumb up. So
That's okay.
we apologize. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. Good morning, everyone. Please read the IPC report, cover to cover. Read it in sorrow and in anger. not as words and numbers, but as names and lives. Be in no doubt that this is irrefutable testimony. It is a famine, the Gaza famine. It is a famine that we could have prevented. It is a famine that hits the most vulnerable first, each with a name, each with a story, that strips people of dignity before it strips them of life, that forces a parent to choose which child to feed, that forces people to risk their lives to seek food. It is a famine that we repeatedly warned of, but that the international media has not been allowed in to cover, to bear witness. It is a famine in 2025, a 21st century famine, watched over by drones and the most advanced military technology in history. It is a famine openly promoted by some Israeli leaders as a weapon of war. It is a famine on all of our watch. Everyone owns this. The Gaza famine is the world's famine. It is a famine that asks, but what did you do? A famine that will and must haunt us all. It is a predictable and a preventable famine. A famine caused by cruelty, justified by revenge, enabled by indifference, and sustained by complicity. It is a famine that must spur the world to more urgent action, that must shame the world to do better. It is a famine that therefore also asks, and what now will you do? My ask, my plea, my demand to Prime Minister Netanyahu and anyone who can reach him: enough. Ceasefire. Open the crossings, north and south, all of them. Let us get food and other supplies in, unimpeded, and at the massive scale required. End the retribution. It is too late for far too many, but not for everyone in Gaza. Enough. For humanity's sake, let us in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, US Chief Lecturer, for this remarks. I'll open the floor to questions. Very few questions here in the room, please. We've got very few minutes. So let me start with Robin, is our correspondent of AFP English language.
Thank you. Is this a moment of shame for the world? And do you think that Gazans are living under collective punishment of starvation?
Thank you, Robin. And you're right. This is a moment of collective shame, and I think we all feel that in different ways. We all have to look back as the international community and think, where could we have got this in a different place? And we've watched it happen in real time. We've not watched it as closely as we could have done if you'd all been allowed in to cover it, as with the other big moments of famine that many of us can remember through our lifetimes. And it is, as I say, a famine that could have been prevented, but there has been that systematic obstruction preventing us from getting those trucks moving at the scale that they need to, preventing us from breaking that blockade that has existed for so much of recent months. Now, I don't know what people in Gaza will be saying this morning. I doubt they'll be reading this report. They don't need to read the report. They know this. And they've known it for weeks and months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see many hands. Imogen Foulkes, BBC.
Swiss transport let me down. Israel consistently denies that there's famine. Not just the Israeli government, but if you even see, people asked on the streets, they deny. What would you say, maybe to ordinary Israelis?
I think it's important, and many of those that I've been in touch with in recent weeks inside Israel, including survivors of the October 7th massacre in Nir Oz, kibbutz, and elsewhere, they want this food to get in. And I think it's important to recognize that there is a growing constituency in Israel that shares our demand that we must get this food moving in and we must avoid this starvation, that we must end this famine. I hope that their voices are heard. I would say to them, as I say to all of you, please read this report. Don't just listen to me. Read the report cover to cover. Read it again and be moved to action.
Thank you very much. Annegret Matari, Neue Zürcher Zeitung.
Yeah. The 6th of August, there was a meeting in New York of UN humanitarian organizations with the Gaza Humanitarian Fund on collaboration. Could you please elaborate what this collaboration could be? Thank you.
So I think you're referring, there was a meeting on the 6th of August, a briefing meeting held by the American Embassy, which included a representative of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is running these militarized hubs inside Gaza. We know how to distribute aid at the scale needed to end this famine. Our system of distribution has been systematically dismantled and replaced. We have the food to deliver at scale. We have the networks to deliver at scale. We know how to do this. And we need to be allowed to do our work. What others do is for them. We need to be allowed to work.
I see Nick Bruce in the New York Times.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for your briefing. Israeli policy is underpinned by the United States and by its continuing support for GHF. Have you seen or had any contact with the administration that shows any sign of shifting their position on this?
We are in very regular contact with American colleagues. It's notable that President Trump has clearly given an instruction that we must end this starvation. And I take that seriously. And I know that American colleagues take that seriously too. My ask of them is, of course, to let us operate at scale, to use the networks, the resources that we have, the experience that we have. We do this all over the world. And we've done it in Gaza, of course. When I was there earlier this year in the first quarter, during the ceasefire, we were getting in 600, 700 trucks every day. We can do that again. We're ready to go. And we're trying to help our American colleagues understand that that is essential to ending this starvation and finding ways to use their influence and their engagement to that effect.
Sorry, the very, very last question. Paula Dupras, Geneva Solutions. Look at Geneva.
Yeah, good morning. Could you comment on how the NGO restrictions that Israel is imposing or is threatening to impose is impacting the partners that you work with on the ground and the security implications of that?
Thank you for raising this, because this isn't just about UN access. We also need commercial access to end this famine, commercial access at scale, and we need access for our essential humanitarian partners across the humanitarian movement. I think the best reference point actually is the letter that over 100 NGOs wrote last week, which sets out the way in which they are being impeded, very specifically the obstacles that they need to be removed in order to deliver. And so when we call for unimpeded access through all the crossings, we are calling for that for our entire humanitarian movement. We need them back on the ground, delivering at scale and in a principled humanitarian way.
Thank you very, very much, USG Fletcher, for being with us. Please be reminded of a strict embargo until 11 o'clock. We will come back at 11 o'clock on this matter. I'd like to say thank you again and come back soon, Mr. Fletcher. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a pre-recorded press conference given there from Geneva, that 11 o'clock reference at local time, which is why we brought you that news at 10 o'clock here in London. That was Tom Fletcher there, Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator. For humanity's sake, let us in, he says. So the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel and the Israeli government, enough. Bring a ceasefire, open all crossings, allow the massive scale of food in unimpeded. Tom Fletcher saying that the report should be read in sorrow and anger, that food is stacked on the border, but there is systematic obstruction of food aid deliveries by Israel. Famine, he said, within a few miles of fruit, but the international media unable to bear witness due to the restrictions placed on it by the Israeli government. Famine watched over by drones, he said, and openly promoted by some Israeli leaders as a weapon of war. And the world should own this famine, Tom Fletcher went on to say. He said it was predictable and preventable, and that the world was shamed to be bearing witness to what was going on, and for humanity's sake to let food aid in. He said the people of Gaza had known this situation for weeks and for months, and that there was a growing constituency within the Israeli public who wants to see food being transported into Gaza. This is this breaking news this hour, that the United Nations has declared famine in Gaza City. This is the first time that it has been declared in the territory since the outbreak of the conflict on October the 7th, 2023. And we're just getting reaction from some Israeli authorities. This is from COGAT, which is the coordination of government activities in the territories. Breaking reaction from them, a long statement in response. I'm going to read you part of it. Like previous IPC reports and assessments regarding the humanitarian situation in Gaza, this report ignores the data on aid deliveries published by COGAT, that is an Israeli government body, as well as Hamas's deliberate and cynical exploitation of that aid. The classification of famine relies on unpublished phone surveys, questionable assessments by UNRWA, some of whose employees are Hamas operatives and local NGOs. All of this is coupled with sweeping speculation and distortions of fact that not only undermine the credibility of the IPC, but also reflect the same pattern we have seen since October the 7th, when respected institutions and media outlets rushed to amplify falsehoods and fabricated narratives against Israel. That is COGAT, the Israelis' coordination of government activities in the territories, reacting to that report from the IPC, rejecting what it says are claims published by the IPC Index. But the breaking development this hour is that declaration of famine in Gaza City. For the first time, the UN-backed Integrated Food Security Phase classification, which monitors world hunger, making that formal declaration. Reaction there from Tom Fletcher as well of the United Nations. He is the Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs. Let's bring in Adam Parsons, who's following developments for us in Jerusalem. Adam, some very strong words and condemnation there from the UN.
Yeah, very strong words from the United Nations, very strong words from the Israeli government in response. Let's just, for a moment, go back to the fundamental thing that has happened here, which is that the IPC, which is a multi-agency organisation backed by the United Nations, has declared famine in an area of Gaza. It's not saying it for the whole of Gaza. It's what they call the Gaza Governorate, which includes Gaza City and some areas around that, although they are warning of impending catastrophe, potentially by the end of September, across much of the rest of Gaza. So they've declared a level famine. First time that has been declared outside of the continent of Africa. And just to give you some of the snapshots of what that means, in their estimation, that means at least 20% of households face a complete lack of food or other basic needs. It means that they believe there is starvation, death and destitution evident. It says that acute malnutrition is now above 30%, and that mortality rates due to malnutrition are now at least 2 people dying out of every 10,000 every day. Lots of responses to Action Aid, the charity, saying this is a deep stain on our collective humanity. And you heard there the fury from Tom Fletcher. Talking of systematic obstruction by Israel. This was saying this is a matter of shame, and also calling on the Israeli government to, in his words, end the retribution. Israel, in response, has completely denied this, as they inevitably were going to. They do not, well, they say they do not believe that there is a famine in Gaza. They have consistently said that the images of famine are either fraudulent or fake, or in some way are being spun. In other words, that people who seem to be suffering from famine or malnutrition are simply, in their words, vulnerable people who are suffering due to hunger rather than famine. And they put the blame for this entirely on Hamas. This is the argument you will always get from the Israeli government, is that Hamas started this war, Hamas could have ended it, that Hamas are stealing food aid that comes into Gaza, and also they would say, why is the world worrying about hunger of Gazans and, in their words, of Hamas fighters, rather than worrying about the starvation being suffered by the hostages? Gareth, there was always going to be a maximalist response from both sides of this. There is no nuance in this. The United Nations, through Tom Fletcher, and I expect this to be repeated by other agencies, by other United Nations figures today, are saying that this is a stain on humanity, that this is a man-made famine that could have been stopped and is a result of aid not being allowed in, and that effectively, the Israeli government know what they are doing in engineering a famine. The Israeli government say that that is an outrageous claim, and that they are responding to a terrorist attack on October the 7th that killed 1,200 of their citizens, resulted in 250 being taken hostage, and was a material threat from a group who they, in their estimation, have to remove. And so we are left probably where we expected to be, with 2 polarized responses, and in the middle of it, the Gaza Strip, where clearly conditions are becoming absolutely intolerable. And one final thing on this, I think the global community, so many countries, are now calling on Israel to intervene and to provide more aid to open these crossing points, except for the United States. Mike Huckabee, the US ambassador here in Jerusalem, saying that this is a decision for Israel. He said, yes, there is hunger, but he is continuing to put the blame for that at Hamas, and that is echoed by President Trump. And I think as long as the Israelis believe they have the United States behind them, then they will believe that they can carry on.
Adam Parsons joining us live from Jerusalem. Thank you so much. We're just getting reaction from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, posting online, just when it seems there are no words left to describe the living hell in Gaza, a new one has been added: famine. This is not a mystery. It is a man-made disaster, a moral indictment, and a failure of humanity itself. Famine is not only about food, it is the deliberate collapse of the systems needed for human survival. People are starving, children are dying, and those with the duty to act are failing. As the occupying power, Israel has unequivocal obligations under international law, including the duty of ensuring food and medical supplies of the population. We cannot allow this situation to continue with impunity. No more excuses. The time for action is not tomorrow, it is now. We need an immediate ceasefire, the immediate release of all hostages and full, unfettered humanitarian access. That was reaction from Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, following that declaration of famine in Gaza City, home to around 500,000 people. These are live images from Gaza. It is 12:25 there local time. You can see the crowd of people there around what we would assume to be a water tanker, a water bowser, potentially fuel, but I should imagine water. People there from the top of your screen walking down, carrying buckets, some of them carrying what appear to be maybe just plastic bags as well. You've got a variety of people, children, small young children as well as adults, parents. The door of that truck open, you can see the banner, the humanitarian banner on the front of it. Some people climbing up onto the roof of this tanker. You can see that this is a scene that we have seen so many times throughout the course of this conflict. It's a scene that Tess Ingram, Middle East and North Africa Communications Manager at UNICEF, has seen many times herself. Joining us from Al Mawasi in Gaza, about 15 to 20 miles southwest of Gaza City itself. Good to have you with us. Your thoughts, if you will, on the declaration of famine in Gaza City.
This is our worst fears being realised. Like has been said by previous speakers on the program just now, we have been warning about this consistently for about 22 months now. The group of global experts that today have confirmed famine is occurring in Gaza City and could spread to other parts of the Gaza Strip in coming weeks first warned of the risk of famine in December 2023. And yet here we are in August 2025 and we have a famine on our hands. Despite our best efforts, we haven't been able to prevent this. And that is a shame on the whole international community, because this could have been prevented. Here in Gaza, I've spent the past 48 hours at nutrition points where UNICEF is trying to help malnourished women and children. And these mothers are in tears because they have exhausted all of their options. They are watching their children die, and there is nothing that they can do about it. Imagine being that mother. That is the situation that people are in at the moment. And honestly, the scenes at these clinics has shocked me. I've been to Gaza 4 times, and what I have seen this week is the worst conditions among children that I have ever seen.
You say there, mothers in tears watching their children die and being unable to do anything about it. We've just heard from the Israeli Foreign Ministry. It says the IPC's published a tailor-made, fabricated report to fit Hamas's fake campaign. What do you make of that?
These are claims that we've heard before, and I think they're contradictory to the evidence. They're contradictory to the evidence that we have issued today in this IPC report. They're contradictory to what we are seeing here as humanitarian aid workers on the ground and to what the people of Gaza understand. They know the conditions that they are suffering through, and for them, for these mothers, for these children, it is very simple. They do not have enough to eat. They are sick and they are weak. They are fainting from the lack of food. This is clear to us, and it should be clear to the international community. It's been live streamed into people's living rooms for almost 2 years now.
The Defence Minister of Israel, Israel Katz, with reference to the military activity in Gaza City, where this famine has been declared, says soon the gates of hell will open upon the heads of Hamas. The impact, though, will be felt widely amongst the civilian population. And the UNRWA boss, Filippi Lazzarini, yesterday said that many people will not have the strength to undergo a new displacement. Many will not survive. What's your analysis of what impact this increased military activity will have on the young people and on the population of Gaza City?
Well, Gaza City is the location where famine has just been classified in the Gaza Strip. So I think the impact of an escalation of military activity in that area is clear. We're talking about a population of almost 1 million people who are struggling to hang on. People are exhausted, they're starving, many have been displaced. We spoke to people there yesterday more than a dozen times in the past 2 years, and they're again facing the prospect of having to move. If people are able to move and they want to move, they have nowhere safe to go. And if they cannot move, for example, if they have a malnourished child, a baby in an incubator, a child in an ICU unit, They are out of options, and they're at serious risk if this military offensive goes ahead. So we are urging for that to be reconsidered, and if it does happen, to make sure that civilians are protected whether they leave or whether they stay, and that they have the basics that they need to survive.
The Integrated Food Security Phase classification has also warned that not just in Gaza City is there famine currently, but it could spread to regions including Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis, which saw widespread fighting in previous months. It warns that famine could be there by the end of September based on current projections. What would it take? How much aid do you need to stop and reverse this situation?
I think that's a real risk. As I said, I've been to these nutrition points in Deir al-Balah the last 48 hours, and the scenes were beyond belief. I met a little girl called Noor who was born healthy at 4 kilograms, and now at 14 months old, she is just 5 kilograms, about half of what she should weigh. Her 2-year-old brother is malnourished, her mother is malnourished, and that is not an uncommon story. This is what we have to address. At the moment, we are getting dozens of trucks into the Gaza Strip every day. We need 500 or 600, and we've proved that that's possible. We can do that if we're enabled. We did it during the ceasefire, and that's the volume of aid that's needed to stop this famine from spreading. The time is now. We need the Israeli authorities to open all of the crossings, to allow aid in at scale, and then to enable us to move that aid quickly and safely to the people that need it, wherever they are, including in Gaza City.
Tess Ingram of UNICEF joining us from Al Mawasi in Gaza. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much. It's 12:31 in Gaza. You're watching Sky News. Still to come through the course of this morning. We'll have more reaction as famine is declared in Gaza City for the first time.